Now let's just look at a couple pros and cons of inflation. Loss of jobs. Some tech companies have started to lay people off. I know Robinhood is one of those companies. There's less investment. There's a debate back and forth of whether or not we're going to end up in a recession. That is just one of the disadvantages of inflation actually going up. I feel like I can buy less now. Hopefully, guys, you get a better understanding of how inflation is affecting not only the US, but what it looks like when it spikes and how it's affecting people across the world. Now let's just look at a couple pros and cons of inflation. The advantages of inflation. Moderate inflation enables economic growth. Moderate inflation allows adjustment of real wages. So that's when you get like a raise increase due to the cost of living. Moderate inflation allows adjustment of prices. It allows you to budget into the future, knowing that like if it's consistent, then you could say, okay, a house is 500 grand this year, but I know in the next couple years it's going to be a little bit more. Therefore, I need a wage increase, or I need to switch jobs. And then, of course, inflation is better than deflation. The interest rates going up, what Jerome Powell is trying to do is cause deflation in order to get inflation back down to a normal price so it doesn't go super crazy like it is in the example of the housing craze that we just came through, and then also what's happening in Turkey. So now let's talk about some of the disadvantages of inflation. Disadvantages are it creates uncertainty and lower investment. Higher inflation often leads to lower growth and less stability, reduces international competitiveness. To reduce inflation can lead to a recession, fall in value of savings, and if wages don't keep up, lower real wages. Yeah, so let's just dive into that. So some of the disadvantages of inflation is the fact that you could buy less. And I feel like I can buy less now, right? Like the example I gave earlier on in this conversation is my mom was able to buy a house for $300,000. My house is in the $600,000 range. And even though I make more money, it doesn't really equate well. So that's inflation going up. That's housing prices just to live in a nice, decent neighborhood in a decent sized house. I'm paying double the cost of what my mom paid. And I can only imagine for someone who has multiple kids or doesn't make as much or doesn't work for a tech company, what it's really like for them to have to deal with like inflation. So one of the disadvantages of inflation is the fact that at some point the interest rate gets hiked up by the central bank, and then deflation happens, which typically causes loss of jobs. Some tech companies have started to lay people off. I know Robinhood is one of those companies. There's less investment, right? There's companies and individuals like myself are scared to actually make investments in the stock market, which leads to a downward spiral to get inflation back under control. And so, and sometimes that keeps happening until you get pushed into a recession where there's a lot of job loss, people aren't currently working. There's a debate back and forth of whether or not we're going to end up in a recession. I don't know. We'll continue to watch the news to do so, but that is just one of the disadvantages of inflation actually going up. And so the goal of the central bank is to actually keep it kind of even and in the middle so that inflation steadily rises 1 to 2% a year is what we're ideally looking for. Anything above that, it gets kind of crazy.